I never imagined a single act of compassion would lead me to a billionaire's private island. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My hands trembled as I sat on that cold, hard bench in the dingy hospital hallway. The sterile smell mixed with the scent of fear hung heavy in the air. I knew the news would shatter my world. My mother, my heart, the woman who had been my rock, battling cancer for years, was now barely hanging on. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of despair. But here I was, clutching a crumpled piece of paper. A letter from a stranger offering help. "Your kindness will take you places you've never dreamed of," it promised. Who was this person? Why would they reach out? The thought startled me, but in that moment of desperation, I had nothing to lose. Fast forward to a week later, I found myself on the edge of a boat, the salty wind whipping through my hair, my heart racing ahead of me. The blue ocean stretched endlessly, an ancient mystery whispering secrets beneath the surface. My gaze caught on an island in the distance. A private island, they said. A billionaire's lavish paradise. Was I really going there because of one simple act of compassion? The boat churned through the waves, and as I leaned over the side, the water splashed against my face, a brief jolt of reality pulling me back. I could hardly breathe, excitement mingling with the remnants of despair. This was insane. I had never set foot on anything like this before. Shimmering sands, lush greenery, and palm trees dancing with the wind. Everything seemed too surreal. As we approached, I noticed a grand mansion perched on a hill, gleaming in the sun. It was both beautiful and intimidating, radiating an energy that made me question if I really belonged here. My heart pounded in my chest as the boat docked. The moment I stepped out, the warm sand enveloped my toes, grounding me amidst the chaos within. I was greeted by a tall, dark stranger with piercing blue eyes. "Welcome," he said, his voice smooth like honey but laced with a hint of mystery. I felt an electric current between us, but I didn't have time to dwell. My mind was racing, questions flooding in. What was this place? Why was I here? And was help truly on the way for my mother? With each step toward the mansion, the atmosphere thickened with anticipation. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was venturing into unknown territory full of possibility, yet shadowed by uncertainty. Who was this billionaire? What was his game? And would my mother ever receive the help she desperately needed? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The mansion loomed ahead, its grandeur both inviting and intimidating. Each step felt like an uncertain dance, straddling the line between hope and fear. As I entered, the subtle perfume of fresh flowers and polished wood enveloped me, a stark contrast to the clinical sterility of the hospital I had just left behind. It felt like a dream, a beautiful, yet unsettling dream where at any moment I could wake up and find myself back in that cold, unforgiving hallway. "Let me show you to our guest quarters," the stranger said, his deep voice sending ripples of anticipation through me. There was something strangely comforting in his presence, and despite my swirling emotions, I found myself wanting to trust him. His name, I learned, was Ethan. The billionaire himself. We walked through vast rooms adorned with art and lavish decor. Each piece told stories of adventure, love, and loss, yet they felt overshadowed by the chaos in my heart. "You're probably wondering why you're really here," Ethan said, glancing over his shoulder, his blue eyes locking onto mine. "And I promise, it's not just to escape your troubles for a while." That I nodded, my throat tightening. "You don't know what to expect. I just hope my mother can get the treatment she needs. I don't know how to help her." My voice was barely more than a whisper, as if saying the words aloud would conjure my fears into reality. Ethan's expression softened. Compassion can ignite change, even in moments when hope seems lost. He paused, as if weighing his next words. I want to help you, but you need to trust me. Trust in the unknown. His reassurance didn't completely lift the weight on my chest, but it did stir something within me, a flicker of hope I thought had extinguished. A moment later, a woman appeared, her smile bright enough to outshine the sun. Welcome. I'm Mia, the island's caretaker. We are so glad to have you here, and I assure you, we'll do everything we can to support you. Mia's warmth felt like a lifeline. As she guided me to my room, a sense of calm began to seep into my bones. The space was breathtaking and airy, sweet, with large windows that opened to the beach. I could hear the waves crashing, a soothing rhythm that gnawed gently at my worries. Take some time to relax, Mia said, her voice melodic and kind. I'll have lunch sent up shortly, and if you need anything, just call. With that, she left, allowing the soothing sound of the ocean to fill the room. As I sank onto the plush bed, I closed my eyes, letting the exhaustion wash over me. But sleep was elusive. My thoughts continuously spiraled back to my mother. The treatments, the bills. What if this chance was just a momentary distraction from the inevitable? The sound of a gentle knock interrupted my spiraling thoughts, and before I could call out, Ethan stepped into the room, a small smile playing on his lips. I thought you might want to talk, he offered, his tone infinitely easier than in our earlier encounter. It's a lot to digest. I hesitated but then nodded. The walls of my heart crumbled just a little, allowing him a small glimpse into my turmoil. It's just I don't know if I'm deserving of this. This beautiful place, this kindness. All I can think about is my mother, her pain, her fear. Ethan leaned against the door frame, the sunlight casting a golden glow around him. You are deserving. Life can often feel utterly ravaging. Sometimes all it takes is one act of kindness, a spark, to shift everything. That I felt something break open within me, a need to release the burden I had been carrying alone. She is fighting so hard. I came here because someone believed in me, in my capacity to fight for her. My voice cracked, and before I knew it, tears streamed down my face. But I'm so afraid. What if it's too late? Ethan stepped closer, the warmth of his presence grounding me. To my surprise, he reached out and brushed a tear from my cheek. You're not alone in this. I promise you, I will do whatever it takes to make sure she gets the treatment she needs. We'll tackle this together. Just as his words began to alleviate the panic that clawed at my insides, a sudden commotion broke the calm. A loud crash resonated from somewhere within the mansion, followed by frantic shouting. Both Ethan and I turned towards the door, hearts racing with uncertainty. What was that? I asked, my earlier solace rapidly dissolving into apprehension. That I don't know, Ethan replied, his brow furrowed, the calm demeanor replaced by an urgency I hadn't seen before. Stay here. I'll check it out. He rushed out, leaving me standing in the silence that now felt charged with foreboding. My stomach twisted with anxiety, and I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was happening might lead me deeper into an abyss, an omen of looming dangers I wasn't prepared to face. I glanced toward the window at the vibrant waves crashing against the shore, their unrelenting energy a reminder that not all storms can be weathered alone. Moments felt like hours, and just as dread began to settle in my chest, I heard Ethan shout from the other room. No. Don't. My pulse quickened. What had he found? In that instant, the room became a prison, closing in around me as adrenaline spiked my willingness to flee. I needed to know what was happening, not just for my own peace of mind, but for everyone who had shown me kindness in this unfamiliar place. That I took a deep breath, mustering courage, and stepped toward the door, ready to confront whatever darkness awaited me. The hallway felt sprawling and claustrophobic in equal measure as I ventured into the unknown, the sound of Ethan's voice still echoing in my ears. My heart raced as I rounded a corner, the thick smell of expensive wood, perfumes, and a hint of something more foreboding filling the air. Ethan. My voice trembled against the wall of silence that surrounded me, just as I reached the door to a grand library, tall shelves lined with books, rich mahogany furniture surrounding a massive table. The chaos surged again. An unmistakable scuffle was happening inside, punctuated by the sound of something heavy hitting the floor. I pushed the door open, panic coursing through my veins. The scene was chaos incarnate. Ethan was grappling with a man whose features were obscured by a mask, an intruder who seemed to embody the worst of life's unexpected turns. Clenching my fists, I froze at the doorway, every instinct screaming at me to retreat, to turn back to my safe haven. Let him go. I shouted, the words bursting forth with a fierceness I didn't know I possessed. Ethan's blue eyes flicked in my direction, igniting a spark of hope, but fear darkened them as he responded. Get back. It's not safe. The masked man released a guttural laugh as he twisted away from Ethan, brandishing a weapon in a way that shattered my breath. You don't know who you're dealing with, he spat, eyes glinting with malice. Time stood still as he shifted his focus to me, the vibrant energy of the island's beauty fading, subsumed by the anxiety that filled the room. My heart pounded not just with fear, but with an unshakable indignation. The world had already robbed me of my childhood and my mother's health. I wouldn't let it take away this tenuous sliver of hope Ethan had offered. No. I yelled again, stepping further into the room, something within me igniting. You'll never win. You don't get to take him away from me. He's fighting to help us, not just us, but so many others like us. Ethan's surprise allowed me a few moments of courage. The masked man hesitated for just a split second, his confidence faltering in the face of my conviction. It was all the opening Ethan needed. He lunged forward, using the element of surprise to his advantage. But the intruder dodged him, pivoting with a twisted grin. You think you're some kind of savior? Look at yourself flailing, pathetically unprepared for the real world. Shut up. I shouted back, feeling a surge of determination course through me. I would not be a pawn in anyone's game. I could feel the warmth of my tears threatening to spill over, not just from fear but from the overwhelming need to protect what little light remained in my life. The tussle continued, a whirlwind of movement and will against desperation. I spotted something heavy on the tablia, classical sculpture that had stood as merely aesthetic until now. In a surge of instinct, I reached for it, hefting the cold stone into my hands. It was riskier than anything I'd ever attempted, but I had no choice. Ethan. I called out, hoping to gauge his attention. The moment arrived. The masked man was distracted by Ethan's effort to regain the upper hand. I swung the sculpture forward with every ounce of strength I could muster. It collided with the side of the intruder's head, staggering him. For an instant, silence reigned, a moment caught between chaos and the bittersweet taste of shared victory. But before I could breathe, the masked man swung back in a frenzy, his focus souring as he met my eyes. Fiery resentment ignited. Ethan was quick to take advantage, shoving him to the floor, but as my heart leaped, the masked man's voice hissed through the tension. You may have won this round, but this isn't the end. There are more coming for you. Colder than the air around us, his words wrapped around my heart like a vice, sending icy fingers down my spine. He scrambled up and darted toward the rear entrance, fleeing into the shadows like a nightmare escaping the light. Shocked silence fell as Ethan turned to me, breathless, his expression a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. You saved me. Instead of relief, I felt the oppressive weight of horror converge within me as the implications of the masked man's warning sank in. What did he mean? More coming. My voice trembled, raw with anxiety. That I don't know, but it means they know where we are. And they won't stop, Ethan replied, his face paler than I'd ever seen. In that moment, surrounded by a sea of uncertainties, I felt the fragile bonds of hope tighten painfully in my chest. I had stepped away from one source of fear only to plunge into something I wasn't ready for. What do we do now? I asked, voice shaking. Ethan's gaze locked onto mine, fiercely determined yet laced with a hint of apprehension. We prepare. You deserve to fight for your mother, and I'll do everything to protect you. As the echoes of our confrontation lingered in the air, I tried to rally my strength, but instead was engulfed by a strange mix of anger, fear, and a flicker of retaliatory strength. I was no longer the scared girl who left the hospital. I was a warrior in the making. The island, once a place of relief, was now a battlefield where we had to fight not just for a life, but for hope's very survival point, one way or another, I would find a way to reclaim our futures. Then darkness began to encroach upon that resolve. I felt it in my bones that something more nefarious was stirring beyond the sanctuary of this mansion. The shadows lengthened, whispering a warning that the real fight for survival was only just beginning. The heavy atmosphere of the library bore down on me as Ethan and I took a moment to catch our breaths. I could still hear the rustle of the intruder's footsteps fading into the distance, a stark reminder of the danger persisting beyond the mansion's walls. My mind raced through the implications of his threat. The mention of more coming echoed ominously in my thoughts, each repetition deepening my unease. "Ethan," I whispered, realizing that the quiet moment held a bittersweet edge. "What if they come for us tonight? What are we going to do?" "I won't let anything happen to you," he replied, his voice steady, but the flicker of fear in his eyes betrayed the resolve he tried to project. "We need to find a way to defend this place. I have some resources, security measures we can put in place, but..." Something broke in my chest as I swallowed hard. "But what?" "This isn't just about physical security. It's about information," Ethan admitted, running a hand through his tousled hair, anxiety etched across his brow. "We need to find out who those people are. Who they're working for. Why they're coming after us. Can you do that?" He hesitated. "I can try, but I'll need access to my private network. There's no time to waste." I felt an urgency surge, shifting from fear into fierce determination. "What do we need to do?" Ethan nodded once, rolling his shoulders back as though readying himself for battle. "Well, split up. They'll check the main connected systems in my office. If they've penetrated any of our files, it might alert us as to their motives. You need to stay here, but keep the doors locked." "I can help," I urged. "I want to do my part." His gaze softened, and for a moment the weight of the world lifted as I caught a flicker of admiration in his eyes. But it was fleeting. "I need you to promise me something," he said, his expression serious. "Stay within safe boundaries and call for help if anything feels off." "I can't risk. I can take care of myself." My retort spoke from a place of fear and frustration, laced with an unyielding resolve. "I didn't come this far to hide away. We have to fight back." "I know you can," he replied, the weight of sincerity grounding his tone. "But just because you can fight doesn't mean you should put yourself in unnecessary danger." Tension hung between us, both of us grappling with our fear of the unknown. Finally, sensing the tightrope we were walking, he relented. "Fine. We can stay together until I know it's safe." Together we stepped deeper into the library, the grand wooden library case holding a world of knowledge. The flickering candlelight offered an ambience that contrasted sharply with the turmoil around us. We began sifting through papers strewn carelessly across the heavy table, the remnants of unfinished business, each document a potential key to understanding our enemy. "Ethan," I said, my voice breaking the silence, "what if this is bigger than us?" "I'm afraid it might be," he replied, grim as he reviewed a series of contracts. "This island isn't just a refuge for the rich. It's a haven for those with influence and money. That masked man wouldn't have come here without a purpose." A chill crept through me. "What kind of purpose?" "The kind that could endanger everyone you care about," he answered grimly, his expression tightening as he grabbed one of the papers, revealing a name I recognized: a CEO known for unthinkable practices. "If there's a connection to Rostov Holdings in here, we could be in deep trouble. Maybe it's not just us they're after, then. Maybe it's the people we're trying to protect." My voice trembled, heartbreak gnawing at the corners of my resolve. He looked at me, the turbulence in his eyes mirroring my emotions. "Yes, and we can't let them succeed. Not when there's so much at stake." Just then, a whispering sound cut through the quiet footsteps originating near the entry. My heart seized. "Did you hear that?" Ethan's demeanor shifted, his stance becoming more defensive as he slowly edged closer to the entrance. "Stay behind me," he instructed, his voice barely a breath above a whisper. Another shifting sound echoed, and before I could process the urgency swelling within me, the door swung open, revealing a figure cloaked in shadow. Ethan. The voice was unmistakable, a woman, sharp and potent. I came as soon as I heard your signal. A moment of disbelief struck before recognition settled in. Amelia, Ethan's loyal assistant and confidant, stepped forward, her eyes widening in shock as she assessed the scene. What happened here? Amelia? How did you find us? Ethan questioned breathlessly. That I received an alert through the system, Ethan, she replied, fierce determination flooding her frame. You two are in massive danger. The others are already on their way. Others? I interrupted, dread building within me. They're here for the both of you. I barely escaped, but we need to act quickly. We can't let them catch us off guard again. Panic tightened its grip as Amelia's words loomed over us, but amidst the dread, an unexpected flicker of hope sparked within me. We weren't alone anymore. But as the three of us huddled together, a sudden loud crash shattered the tense atmosphere, an urgent reminder that safety was an illusion. I pressed my back against the wall, heart racing as shadows danced along the door frame. The hunt was on, and it felt as though the night held 1,000 specters waiting to strike. That we were running out of time. The icy breath of the approaching night brushed against my skin, and I tightened my grip on the worn-out paper. 3 pairs of eyes were trained on the door, each heartbeat resonating with the crescendo of dread in the air around us. The crashing noise that had sliced through our nervous tension echoed again, and I could feel every inch of my body pulse with fear. Amelia's face held an edge of urgency, a stark contrast to Ethan's stoic facade, which finally began to betray a glimmer of vulnerability. We have to move, she insisted, darting a quick glance at the window, where a slant of moonlight revealed the dust motes swirling unhappily in the air. We can't stay here. They're coming. With a reluctant nod, Ethan turned to me, his eyes reflecting a mix of determination and despair. What do we do? I asked, my voice wavering. We couldn't hide, we knew that much. But what lies ahead? I gulped down a lump forming in my throat. Follow my lead, he said, as he adjusted his posture, something within him igniting as he rose to the surface of command. We need to get to the basement. If there's a way to secure things from down there, it might give us a fighting chance. That I exchanged glances with Amelia, and despite the overwhelming gravity of our circumstances, I could sense the bond that had grown in the mere minutes since she arrived. It was as if we were moved by the same flame of hope desperately flickering in the storm. Ethan slipped out of the library door first, his eyes scanning the hall for any signs of intruders. I followed, clenching my fists at my sides, barely daring to breathe. We hurried towards the staircase, the soft padding of our footsteps muted by the plush carpeting. My heart drummed loudly in my ears, overshadowing the sound of our hurried pace. Rounding the corner, we stumbled upon the old portrait of Ethan's family, their marble faces staring down at us with haunting indifference. I could feel sweat dripping down my back, the oppressive atmosphere of the mansion pressing in on us. As we moved on, a flash of movement caught my eye, just a flicker of shadows passing through the window. I froze, an instinct to warn them taking root in my throat. Keep moving. Ethan urged, his voice barely tempered as he ushered us along. In that moment, I understood the burden he carried, the weight of being responsible for our safety while holding his own fears tightly locked away. That we descended the staircase and arrived at the basement door, which stood imposing before us. I nodded behind Ethan as he shoved the door open, revealing a dimly lit space stacked with crates and old furniture. Dust motes danced lazily in the air, and the musty scent of forgotten memories enveloped us. This should work, he muttered, urgency potentializing every word as he began to organize the scattered items, creating a makeshift barricade. I could see the tension in his shoulders, the delicate thread holding him together frayed. Suddenly, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket, jolting both Amelia and Ethan out of their concentrated states. What if it's them? Amelia gasped, but I fumbled with my phone anyway, heart racing with every passing second. The screen lit up, and I recognized the number immediately. Me brother, answer it, Ethan insisted, his voice laced with both command and concern. I didn't know whether it was clever or reckless, but I hit accept without a second thought. Jules. My brother's voice crackled through the line, panic dancing behind every word. I saw the news. Are you okay? I've been trying to reach you. I can't talk long, I rushed out, the oppressive reality of our situation weighing on me. I'm in danger. Can you find me, Danger? What do you mean? He pressed, worry bleeding through the line. Not now. Just please find a way to help us. The boat, he said abruptly, voice shifting, the one I told you about. Simone's been watching it. I don't know how to explain it, but they looked for your name in the records. I don't think you're safe even there. My heart dropped, the revelation echoed through me like a drum beaten relentlessly. What do you mean? Who? The line crackled, breaking, and then went silent as I stood frozen, horror settling in my bones. Outside the basement door, the world felt unforgivingly quiet, and I could hardly breathe. Who's watching? Ethan pressed, his voice sharp with urgency. Confusion rushed through me, and the reality latching onto my fears was suffocating. It was unmarked. And I wanted to scream, to pass on my brother's revelation as I swung my gaze toward Amelia, who was watching me intently, her brows furrowing with concern. Then, a thought sparkled through the Hazemi brother might have just unknowingly revealed something that implicated him, something that bound us closer to our enemies. A loud crash resonated in the distance, rattling the door, and gripped us with fear. We huddled closer, adrenaline surging. Somewhere in the shadows we were entangled in was a threat, something colossal looming larger than any of us fully understood. As we arrived at the edge of uncertainty, another sound erupted from the hallway, footfalls echoing steadily, and each step drew nearer, wrapping us in a cocoon of dread. Our breaths mingled, forming a soft fog of hope interlaced with panic, and I knew with each passing moment, our resolve would be tested again and again. They're here. Ethan whispered as the tension blossomed, filling the air with desperation. I stood rooted at the doorway, heart racing in unison with the encroaching danger. Would we fight together, or would this be the moment it all came crashing down? The darkness of the basement felt alive, almost as if it could sense our fear, and I squeezed my eyes shut for a moment, willing my racing heart to calm. The footsteps drew closer, the muted thud of shoes striking the wooden floor reverberating through the hollow space we had taken refuge in. I glanced at Amelia, whose eyes mirrored my own trepidation, yet within them was a glimmer of steadfastness that ignited a flicker of resolve in me. This was not just about survival anymore, it was about uncovering the truth behind the shadows that pursued us. Move, Ethan hissed, urgency vibrating through his voice. We need to find a place to hide. We grabbed a few of the larger crates and pulled them together, creating makeshift barricades against the old walls of the basement. The thuds grew louder, reverberating through the ground, and I could hardly suppress my instinct to scream. Panic pressed so firmly against my throat I tasted metal. Where are they? Amelia breathed, breaking the silence as her eyes darted around the dimly lit space. I don't know, Ethan whispered, visibly trying to control his breathing. But if they find us we cannot let that happen. Rattled, I took a step back, my mind racing to piece together every disjointed thought. The urgency in Ethan's eyes warned me that this was bigger than what we had initially understood. Maybe my brother's call was a diver's Iona warning we hadn't fully grasped. My gut twisted with the realization that if they had access to my brother's movements, then they might know more about me than I knew about them, but amid the swirling uncertainty, something unexpected flickered within the depths of my fear, a seed of compassion. My heart charged with the knowledge that Amelia, this girl I had known for scarcely more than a few frantic moments, cared enough to put her life on the line alongside mine. I felt an enormity of gratitude towards both her and Ethan, as if our intertwining stories, braided by unfortunate turns, fostered an unbreakable bond that transcended mere survival. Then came a sound that stopped my heart, a creak of the basement door followed by a hard shove. My breath caught in my throat as shadows poured into the small space, dark and sinister figures looming over us. Check under the stairs. A gruff voice commanded, and I felt my heart plummet. They were organized, searching with a ruthless efficiency that sent my thoughts spiraling into chaos. I swiveled, glancing at Ethan, his face set in unwavering determination but with a halo of resolve dimmed by shadows. There was no time. This way. He gasped, dragging Amelia and me behind a stack of crates, nearly collapsing behind them. The air was thick, almost unbearable, yet I felt as though something deep within me was awakening this instinct to protect, to survive. Pushing aside the mounting anxiety, I began to strategize. If we could stealthily gather information while evading capture, we could potentially learn more about who these people were and why they hunted us. If they were searching for clues, they had to be connected to the dark thread that had stitched together our fates. Amelia's fingers clenched tightly to my arm as we leaned into the shadows, breathing in sync, the rhythm of our hearts pounding fierce against our chests. I could hear them, their voices a muffled tapestry straining against the thick air. I strained to listen, even as dread unfurled with each word. Nothing here, a voice grumbled, punctuated by a dull thud of something heavy being tossed aside. Let's check the next room. Yet, the distance of the threat would soon close again, and the tightness in my chest warned me that the moment to act was fast approaching. A whirring sound distracted me, calling my eyes to the old, cobweb-laden light switch on the wall. An idea sparked. "Ethan," I whispered urgently, fear morphing into potent ambition. "If we could cut the lights, maybe we can get away." His gaze hardened with understanding, and I felt our will intertwine anew. As if sensing my determination, he nodded. With Amelia's hand still locked with mine, we positioned ourselves to make a break for it just as the heavy footsteps echoed closer toward us. "Go!" Ethan shouted, pivoting quickly, his hand colliding with the switch. In an instant, darkness consumed us, and the footsteps stopped, confusion blossoming in the air. Where did they go? One of them yelled, frustration ringing in their voice. Heart pounding, I grabbed Amelia's hand, and we moved, instinct guiding us through the unknown, guided only by the shadow of Ethan ahead of us. We darted silently towards the basement's far corner where we hoped to find another exit. The potential of an escape shimmered before me, but as the flashlight beams beamed in, revealing the stark terror on Ethan's face, I knew the danger was escalating with every flutter of the doubts in my mind. As we reached the wall, suddenly, a harsh light illuminated our hiding spot. I froze, my breath hitching as the shadow of a man emerged from the other side, a sinister smirk carved across his lips as realization flickered in his eyes. Well, look what we have here," he sneered, and in that moment, my heart dropped. The electric dread crackling through the air left me teetering on the brink of the unknown, that single act of compassion slipping away like sand through my fingers. The moment unbearably stretched before us, and the revelation that this might not just be a fleeting nightmare rushed at me like a tidal wave. I could feel the fragile threads of our fates fraying, and as I looked into the eyes of our captor, I was left with a chilling certainty our fight had only just begun. The harsh beam of light from the man's flashlight sliced through the darkness, piercing my defenses and igniting the terror that lay coiled in my stomach. Who was he? What did he want with us? The look on his face was one of cruel amusement, as though he had been anticipating our every move. Ethan glanced back at us, his jaw tightening with an intensity that betrayed the fear lurking just behind his stoic facade. I could feel the weight of Amelia's presence, her grip on my hand a substantial comfort against the chilling reality unfolding before us. "Why don't you step out and play with us?" The man taunted, his voice dripping with mockery as he took a menacing step closer. "We've been looking for little mice scurrying around in the dark. Stay back!" Ethan shouted, his voice cracking. He stepped in front of Amelia and me, his body a shield against the encroaching threat. "You don't know who you're dealing with," the menacing figure laughed, a hollow sound echoing back at us. "Oh, but I do. And you three, you're in way over your heads." With a swift motion, he swept his flashlight across the basement, illuminating corners that swelled with shadows. My heartbeat raced in rhythm with the flickering light, each burst highlighting our precarious situation and amplifying my urge to flee. But an odd feeling unfurled from the pit of my stomach, one not just born of fear or despair, but a strange sense of urgency, a question that pressed against me. Why did they want us? My brother's warning echoed in my mind, the truth runs deeper than you think. Perhaps uncovering that truth would pull us from this abyss. The men behind him jostled in the darkness, their voices low but simmering with impatience. "Just grab them." One growled, "Hungry for the hunt, run." I whispered frantically to Ethan and Amelia. All sense of survival coursed through my veins, but I hesitated, rooted in place, the dark promise of danger lurking in every breath we took. Just then, without warning, Ethan lunged at our captor, surprising him as their bodies collided. A primal surge of adrenaline helped me shake the paralysis weighing me down. "Go. Now," Ethan urged, grappling with the man whose laughter turned to rage. In a desperate dash, I tugged Amelia forward, pulling her into the embrace of the darkness. We darted past Ethan, who was struggling to fend off the grasping hands that sought to ensnare him. I stole a glance back, a pang of guilt clawing at my insides, but the clamor of chaos motivated every reckless step we took. The staircase loomed before us, a pathway that could lead us out of this spiraling nightmare. "We can't leave him," Amelia cried, her voice tinged with panic. "He's buying us time." I shouted back, my heart splitting at the thought of abandoning him, but the fierceness of survival eclipsed our circumstances. Before I could think further, we ascended the creaky stairs, the old wood protesting beneath our weight. Every laborious step was a reminder of how fast time slipped through our fingers. As we reached the door, Amelia fumbled with the rusted handle, her fingers slick with sweat. Frantic shouts echoed from below, reverberating violently in the quiet night. Then, with a sharp twist and a heavy shove, the door burst open into the pale moonlight. Exulting relief flooded my being as I stepped outside, blinking against the stars that twinkled pitilessly, and the cold night air hit my lungs like a welcome slap. But it was futile to believe we were safe, not when Ethan was below, fighting against the darkness. "It's not over," I warned, pulling Amelia toward the edge of the property, my mind racing to devise our next move. Just as we reached the perimeter of the estate, our backs pressed against the cool metal gate, I caught sight of movement in the shadows. Figures danced in the faint glow, the captors swirling back toward the staircase. I steeled my resolve, it wasn't just our lives at stake. With every fiber of my being, I needed to find a way to help Ethan, the one who had so selflessly protected us. "Wait, we have to go back," I cried, but Amelia shook her head, her brow furrowed with fear and resolve. "We can't. They'll find us next," she implored, her voice trembling on the edge of desperation. But I could see it in her eyes, the conflict between self-preservation and the desire to protect our friend. Suddenly, from the shadows, a figure emerged. It was a woman, her face softened by concern, emerging from a well-timed retreat behind the dense backdrop of trees. "You too," she called, rushing toward us with purpose. "This way," my heart stuttered as I looked to Amelia, uncertainty clawing at my insides. Who was she? Was she friend or foe? Yet I sensed kindness in her approach, an unexpected lifeline pulled taut amidst our turmoil. "We need to get to safety," she urged, glancing nervously at the stir of shadows gathering behind us. "There are more of them. Follow me." All I had was instinct, and right then, I knew every moment mattered. I grabbed Amelia's hand tightly, and against the odds, we plunged into the darkness of the woods, following the glimpse of hope she offered. But just as we settled into the embrace of the trees, the unmistakable sound of footsteps followed, uneasy and relentless. Panic surged through me, crushing as my lungs filled with the chill of impending doom. But as we sprinted deeper into the cover of night, a thought gnawed at my resolve: would Ethan ever make it out? The flicker of lights and the flash of figures loomed behind us, and just as we rounded a massive oak, I felt something slip from my pocket, a small piece of paper crumpled and forgotten, fluttering into the wind. Unwittingly, it caught the light for just a heartbeat. My breath seized. Beneath the chaos, a thrill of horror washed over me. That single piece of paper held everything that led us here. And before I knew it, the monstrous rhythm of pounding footsteps surged closer, blurring the lines between hope and despair, the line of survival thinning against the edge of the unknown. We had escaped one danger, yet a greater question loomed: would the truth we were escaping ever be revealed, or was it already too late to unravel the dark network that pursued us with an insatiable hunger? The air smelled of damp earth and moss, yet all I could focus on was the sound of our pursuers crashing through the underbrush behind us. Amelia and I weaved through the tangle of trees, hearts pounding fiercely in our chests, the weight of uncertainty heavy on our shoulders. I couldn't shake the feeling that everything we thought we understood was about to unravel before our eyes. Why did you stop? Amelia gasped, her voice barely breaking through the panicked rhythm of our breaths. I dropped something, I murmured, my heart racing not just from our flight but from the terrible weight of what that item represented. If we didn't retrieve it, we'd be left without the key to understanding our circumstances. I might've lost it for good. No, we have to keep moving. She insisted, her voice urgent yet pleading. I could see her fear morphing into desperation, and it wrenched at my heart. But I couldn't abandon the paper. It was strange to cling to something that felt irrelevant in the face of such imminent danger. Yet instinct pulled me back. I knew it held clues to the shadowy figures and the chaos threatening to consume us. It was a remnant of our old lives, a glimpse of the truth that was now layers deep beneath betrayal and terror. Suddenly, an ear-piercing crack echoed through the darkness as a heavy footstep crushed what felt like an unyielding promise that we could escape this unscathed. I turned sharply in the direction of the sound, adrenaline coursing through me. I would not let fear dictate my actions any longer. Okay, we have a choice, I said, clenching Amelia's hand tighter, her anxious energy palpable even in the murky shadows. We can keep running, or we can double back. I just need to grab it, Amelia. It could be our only way out. Amelia hesitated, glancing back toward the sound of the footsteps just beyond the veil of trees. If we go back, we might never come out again, she warned. I know, I whispered fiercely, but we might not make it out without it either. Trust me. My eyes locked onto hers, a pleading for faith unspoken. At last, after what felt like an eternity of silence shadowed by impending doom, Amelia nodded. Just be quick. That we sprinted back towards the path I thought I had taken, but the disorienting darkness felt like it was closing in around us, twisting the familiarity of our surroundings into an alien nightmare. My mind raced with thoughts, desperate for clarity amidst the chaos. Where was it? What did it mean? Just as my heart sank at the thought of having truly lost it, a glint of light caught my eyes underneath a gnarled tree root. There it was, the crumpled paper, forgotten but not lost, shone like a faint beacon amidst the abyss of uncertainty. Got it! I exclaimed, snatching it up before turning swiftly to Amelia. The relief flooded me, but it was short-lived. The familiar heavy footsteps had closed the distance. There was little time to waste. I hurried back to my friend, clutching the paper tightly, when the terrible reality crashed into me. We had to move, and we had to do so swiftly. Let's go. We tore through the underbrush again, the pressing sounds of our pursuers echoing behind us as shadows danced closer, muttering indistinct threats laced with the promise of violence. My heart was a wild drum as I fought against the urge to look over my shoulder. As we reached a clearing, I threw myself down behind a fallen log, pulling Amelia close. The moonlight cut through the trees, casting a celestial glow that emphasized our breathless state, two scared souls caught in a storm of madness. Did you get it? She breathed. I unfurled the paper, heart pounding as the pale light illuminated the ink that had been scrawled in frantic letters. It wasn't a simple note, it was something far darker, a map leading to a hidden location, a series of symbols and references that connected the dots between us and the figures that chased us, characters in a much larger game we had yet to understand. What does it mean? Amelia whispered, scanning the scribbled notes. I don't know, I replied, eyes darting between the paper and the tree lean. But it's connected to them. An anxious shiver curled through me as I glanced back at the edge of the trees, listening carefully. The footsteps had stopped. In their place, I heard the low murmur of voices, the sound slicing through the tension like a knife. They're searching for us, I breathed. But just then, in the periphery of my vision, another movement caught my attention. An unexpected figure emerged from the shadows, cloaked in darkness yet undeniably solid. Run! A familiar voice shouted, breaking through the tension like sunlight ribbing between storm clouds. Ethan! My voice cracked as I leaped to my feet. But as I rushed toward the figure, relief surging through my veins, a chilling realization: Hythe was not alone. A tall man shadowed Ethan, one of the figures from before, a ghost from our last moments of horror. Time froze as I felt the world turn hazy around me. Here we were, finally reunited with our protector, but at what cost? The figure of the man loomed behind him, sinister and omnipotent, the barrier between safety and peril collapsing as silence hung heavy in the air. Go. Ethan yelled again, desperation etched in his features. I'll hold him off, no. I shouted as the darkness engulfed us, terror clawing at my throat. The choice had been made for us. My heart shattered once more at the sight of their confrontation, the embodiment of our choices colliding in a flash of violence. That fleeting moment, the ringing of fate resounded in my head. Would we break free, or would we become part of this haunting narrative, where the truth we sought was entwined with our greatest fears? The adrenaline surged through my veins, blurring my thoughts into a frenetic rush. All of my instincts screamed for action. I had to help Ethan. But behind me, Amelia's grip tightened around my arm, pulling me back from what felt like an unavoidable plunge into chaos. "We can't," she whispered, her voice laced with panic, yet rooted in the desperate need for survival. The terrifying truth hit me like a freezing wave: we didn't have the luxury of hesitation. Turning away from the horrific scene unfolding before us, I wrestled with the heart-wrenching choice between duty and self-preservation. Ethan's face was a storm of resolve and fear. He would never allow himself to be a victim again. "Run!" He screamed one last time, his voice layered with urgency that resonated deep within me as I desperately searched for a path, any path, to escape. I turned just in time to see a flash of steel reflect the moonlight. A knife glinted ominously in the shadowy figure's hand, and I could already feel the chill of future horrors casting its long shadow over us. Fueled by an instinctive need to protect the one person who still believed in me, I obeyed, dragging Amelia along as I darted deeper into the obscured forest. The branches clawed at us like a swirling tempest of despair, but I pressed on, moving with the tightly wound coil of righteousness and fear new to my veins. The urgency pulses like a heartbeat, each step leading us away from the terrifying tableau that was Ethan's sacrifice. "Where do we go?" Amelia panted, her eyes wide with confusion and terror, a mirror of the storm swirling within me. "I don't know," I said, my voice harsher than intended. A surge of guilt followed. I had dragged her into this nightmare, and now we were stumbling through the dark together. "We just need to find a place to hide and get our bearings." We scuttled to a thorny thicket, its type of concealment both comforting and stifling. As we crouched low, my mind raced against the backdrop of the chaos behind us. What if Ethan didn't make it out? The thought clenched my heart, bright and agonizing. Every moment fallen into the void felt like a blow against reason and hope. "I can't believe this is happening," Amelia said, barely more than a whisper. "It can't be real." "I know," I murmured, closing my eyes against the blinding fear. "But it's happening, and we need to stay alive." But as the reality of our situation sank deeper, something in me cracked open, and a slow realization began to bloom. Even if we escaped, what did that mean? What could I do without the person who had always stood as a shield against the darkness? A single tear slid down my cheek, reflecting the puddle of hopelessness forming inside me. Suddenly, the stillness was broken by distant shouts, far more than just Ethan's and his assailants' conflict. The clamor grew into a cacophony, each voice bringing forth the specters of desperation and urgency that coursed through the trees surrounding us. They were coming, more of them. "They're here," I whispered, my breath hitching in my throat. My mind raced through options, none of them good, all of them steeped in fear. The shredded fragments of the map slipped from my fingers and lay crumpled by my side, lost among the thorns. "Lyle, what do we do now?" "We can't just hide forever," Amelia murmured, her eyes glistening with fear. "I know," I said softly, heart aching. In that moment, the reality was stark. This was a game of wits we were directed into, but I felt panicked narrative threads on the verge of unraveling. An unexpected sound broke the oppressive silence. The crackling of twigs underfoot suggested movement was only a step away. We peered through the thicket, the panic twisting my insides as I grasped the situation. "Okay," I breathed, as an idea sparked against the chaos swirling in my mind. "If we can create enough noise away from here, maybe we can draw them off. It won't buy much time, but we need a diversion." Amelia nodded, determination pooling in her terrified gaze. "How?" "Go down towards the river," I said, motioning toward the direction. "Make noise. Maybe we can make them think. We've gone down that way." As soon as the plan was even vaguely formed, I felt the thrill and shiver of fear intertwine on itself, a reckless gamble, but we had to try. We both crept forward cautiously, hearts drumming frantically, the sounds of the approaching figures growing louder in the chaotic night. Amelia dashed ahead, slipping under the cover of branches and shrubs. My pulse raced as I followed her, anticipation mounting with each tiny crackle beneath our feet. The sparkling surface of the river loomed ahead like a beacon of hope, but it still felt so fragile in the face of our impending doom. Just as we reached the banks, the eerily familiar shadows engulfed us once more. The voices rang above the lapping of water, a boom of laughter, boisterous and jarring. A group of men emerged, not expecting us, and I pulled Amelia back hard behind the safety of the tree. The knot of dread tightened around me, as the gleam of one familiar face in the dim moonlight struck me like lightning. It was Josiah, though he had been cultivated into something darker since we'd parted. Was it really worth the risk? He sneered, as they gathered in a murmur, revealing the unmistakable connection to our own twisted reality that I never thought a single act of compassion would lead me to this. Each measured word carried the weight of condemnation. Time froze in that moment. The level of betrayal curled around my heart, and as I clutched Amelia tightly, the sickening realization swept over me like a tidal wave that crashed over our fragile hopes. The truth, buried deeper than any of us could have fathomed, was clawing its way to the surface. What had Ethan sacrificed himself for? There must be a way to make sense of it all, but as I listened intently to Josiah and the men, I found that every word exchanged painted a picture far more horrifying than the darkness that surrounded us. Will this all lead to the end? Or, have we desecrated every path left unguarded? My heart raced in tandem to the uncertain fate ahead, as shadows emerged, chaotic, and I couldn't help but feel drawn into the tempest. The needle pinched tighter, and all too soon, I hoped the sun would rise once more over this harrowing night, but I feared what might remain once it did. The cold air wrapped around me like a shroud, thick with confusion and despair as I crouched behind the twisted roots of the ancient tree. My heart felt tightly wound, a song of anxiety playing in tandem with the discordant sounds of the night. Josiah's voice floated through the tense atmosphere, sinister and mocking, an echo of the boy I once knew. The shadows he commanded had morphed into a chilling army, a stark reminder of the darkness lurking just out of sight. That moment the revelation that Josiah was intertwined with the very nightmares we were trying to escape hit me like a freight train. I gasped, a panic spreading through me, and I felt Amelia's grip tighten around my wrist, grounding me momentarily. Together, we witnessed the dark evolution of someone I once trusted, and it shattered my beliefs in humanity a little more. They think they can outsmart me, Josiah said, a sardonic smile playing on his lips as he surveyed the area. Every move, every act of heroism will come crashing down upon them. They should have stayed hidden. The sinister weight of his words wrapped tightly around my throat, and a rush of nausea coursed through me, each syllable suffocating the glimmer of hope I had clung to. Their only mistake was trusting each other, one of the men next to him sneered, a cruel laughter that set my teeth on edge. But what would they know about loyalty when they're running on borrowed time? I struggled to comprehend how it had all come to this. How the glimmering threads of compassion that brought me to the island and united us against the shadows had turned into a deadly game of betrayal. My heart was a drumbeat of panic, the truth running deeper than I'd imagined, a painful reckoning wrapping itself around me. As their voices merged into a cacophony of taunts and laughter, the shadows began to drift away, their backs turned to where Amelia and I were crouched. My heart raced with urgency. We had just enough time to slip away, but leaving now felt like abandoning everything Ethan had fought for. Suddenly, a blast of adrenaline surged through me. Amelia, we have to distract them, I whispered urgently, feeling a steely determination settle in my gut. There had to be a way to turn the tide. We couldn't just hide in the shadows. We can lead them away from Ethan. But how? She replied, glancing back at me, her eyes wide with fear and hope. We can't get caught. I stared down at the flowing river nearby, an idea igniting. The water. If we cause a disturbance, they might go check it out. We can maybe scream or splash around. It'll give us a chance to slip away into the opposite side. Are you sure? She asked, uncertainty flickering in her gaze. Yes. It's a risk we have to take, I insisted, the gravity of the situation igniting my resolve. It was now or never. Amelia nodded, the determination in her eyes a mirror of my own. We blinked toward the night, and with bated breaths, we crept toward the riverbank. The soft flow of the water whispered promises as we stepped quietly onto the banks. Then I pushed my hand into the cool, dark surface, sending ripples cascading outward. Churning the water, I sent the droplets flying as far as I could, watching with grim resolve as the ripples danced away. Now, I hissed, just before lifting my voice. Help! Over here! It was raw, a mix of desperation and defiance, but it brought the necessary urgency to the unfolding chaos. The group of men turned sharply, alerted by the cries. That way! Josiah shouted, barking orders as the shadows scrambled to draw nearer, abandoning the cover of the thicket that had hidden them so well. With my heart pounding, I gestured to Amelia to move along the bank. We slipped away, hearts hammering in unison, every breath a prayer. But even as we moved, an icy fear settled deep within me, a realization of who or what our enemies had become. I kept picturing Ethan's face and the determination in his gaze, pushing away the guilt of seemingly abandoning him. That we reached the edge of the river, the roar of the flowing water complementary to my racing pulse. Finding a hollow under a cluster of boulders, we slipped inside, the damp earth grounding us even as the world around us twisted into chaos. I squeezed Amelia's hand, encouragement coursing between us in unspoken words. Do you think we lost them? She asked breathlessly, her voice tight with anxiety. That I don't know, I whispered back, staring at the dark water. But we can't give up. We need to hold on to hope. I felt a flicker deep inside, something stronger than fear. It burned with the reminder of compassion, of responsibility, and above all, of unwavering connection. We owed our survival not just to ourselves but also to Ethan, who believed we could shine light through any darkness. Heavy moments passed, our breathing the only sound that flowed between the undercurrents of fear and hope. My mind spun with thought. Was Ethan fighting? Would we ever see him again? Suddenly, the echo of voices grew louder, the footsteps nearing once more. My heart sank as I caught a glimpse of the figures, emerging from the thicket with narrowed eyes, and dread filled the hollow of my stomach. The men were back, shadows haunting the banks, searching with a relentless fury. What now? Amelia's voice was strained, urgency bubbling beneath the surface of her fear. My eyes darted toward the river, feeling the tug of fate. We need to get across. There. I pointed toward the slight gap between the stones that led further upstream, away from Josiah and his men. It was a risk, one that could lead us directly into their hands or save us entirely. We can do it. I whispered fiercely. Trust me. Amelia's face turned pale, yet she nodded once more, the acceptance giving me strength. Together, we climbed from our hiding place and balanced ourselves against the slippery rocks leading into the cold embrace of the water. A sense of freedom intertwined with the anguish of leaving what we had known behind: friends, family, safety. I balanced precariously, glancing back at our pursuers drawing closer. The last vestiges of light dimmed on the horizon, and I longed to reclaim the hope that had been slowly fading. Let's go, I urged, taking the plunge into the river and swimming swiftly across. The water surged around us, a cleansing force against the raw emotions coursing through my veins. Success was fleeting, every second felt like an eternity, but as I emerged on the other side, dragging Amelia close, we crumpled on the bank. It's working, I gasped, adrenaline racing as I glanced back over the water toward the men who had chased us. But even in those moments, an undeniable truth flickered: a new bravery forged in desperation and determination. We had come too far, we would not stumble at the edge. As they shouted in the distance, something powerful surged within me, a fierce glow illuminating my darkest thoughts. We could not lose fear, to darkness, or to the past. Let's find him, I whispered to Amelia, daring to believe that together we could face the shadows. Deep down, I knew this journey, these terrifying tribulations were not just tests of survival but also of our convictions. We would learn to fight not just against the monsters lurking in the darkness, but to carve our paths through them, emerging stronger on the other side. With renewed purpose, we bound ourselves to the resolve that tied Ethan's fight with our own. We would not let him down. We were not just survivors, we were a team, and every act of compassion that had led us to this moment would fuel our charges into the unknown future, no matter how daunting it appeared. And as we ventured deeper into the forest, the fragile bonds of hope and resilience filled spaces once inhabited by fear. The night was alive with possibility, and though it was tangled with uncertainty, it reminded me of one irrevocable truth: together, we could illuminate the darkest paths, forging a light that no shadow could ever extinguish.